two things happened. So my buddies were making some money doing mortgages at various mortgage companies, but then my mom had this Uber passenger in the back seat of her car. She's got like a dash camera recording the interior and everything. And some guy got in the back seat of her car crying. He's super drunk and he's like, Rocket Mortgage changed my life. And so she came to me and she's like, you should apply to Rocket Mortgage and do mortgages. And I already had buddies doing it, so I'm like, might as well try.
Guys, we're here with a new episode today. I've got a special guest, Drew Battaglia. And before we start, I do want to give you a shout out. I've known you for over a year now, and I think there are very few people I've connected with in the Cleveland market that take a risk, overcome a lot of shit that goes well and goes negatively, and then still focus on the main thing. I also admire that you and Carly have found a way to be life partners and business partners, and I think today we'll talk about how that can be a huge asset and some nights a liability. And in general, I think you're one of the few people that I've been able to give solid feedback to, also receive it from. And I just want to welcome you to the show.
Appreciate it, brother. I'm honored to be here.
So for people who don't know, today they might see you as the cleaning company guy, but I remember we actually met briefly years ago back at a off-market real estate event where I believe you spoke and Kit Custer spoke. So at the time you were how old? I want to say like 18 or 19?
I was probably 20,
Okay.
if I had to guess.
And so I didn't
Maybe
even realize
21.
that people could get into lending at such a young age. So kind of talk people through, how did you even get to a point where when you're, let's say, 18, 19, 20 years old, your job is a lender?
Yeah, so I wish it was a more glamorous story. I wish I had like a bomber origin story as to how I decided to go into lending. But what really happened was I ended up in insurance first. And it was because Carly showed me a picture of a guy on a Snapchat story with a stack of cash. And he's like, start selling insurance. And I'm like, all right. And so I tried it. I started my own insurance agency when I was in high school before I graduated. Obviously, it flopped. Learning experience, definitely. But the original crew that I was doing the insurance stuff with moved on to mortgages. And so I followed. And they were a couple of years older than me, so it made it like, kind of easy to follow in their footsteps.
So what was the first job you got in, let's call it the insurance finance world? It was starting your own insurance agency.
Yeah, that was it. I mean, right away, I was never an agent. I was never like working at an insurance agency or brokerage. I just immediately started my own right away, which was probably a huge mistake. Like, obviously, it was doomed to fail from the start. But that's my first job. I mean, I got in with a couple different carriers thanks to my friend Iad, and we started looking for leads. We were buying aged leads on the internet, and that was actually also my first introduction to go high level and marketing automations, because that's what we were doing. We were drip campaigning aged leads that we could get really cheap on the internet because we're high school kids, and we were selling policies.
And so when did this transfer over to the mortgage side? Was that when you worked at Rocket Mortgage?
Yeah, well, I failed at the insurance thing. We hired brokers. They produced quite a bit, and then they left and resold the leads on other carriers. So if you know anything about life insurance, your commission will be charged back if your clients cancel within the first year. So I got a big bill. All of my business fell off, and I left the insurance world. It was over for me. And I worked construction for a little while. I got my commercial driver's license. I decided I was going to start a trucking company. The trucking company idea got decimated when I found out that insurance was going to be like 60 grand a year for an 18-year-old kid with 4 points on his driver's license. And like, no, it was not going to work ever. But I did that, and that's when I heard about mortgages. So my buddies were already doing it. I was not in the headspace to continue with sales at that point. I'm like, screw sales. I'm going to do trucking now. I'm going to dig holes like my dad did and make money. That's going to be it. I had decided for sure that I was going to be blue collar. And when that didn't work out, my buddies were making money in lending. Everybody's screaming from the rooftops in the lending world that the rates are about to fly down and there's going to be a massive refinance boom because of COVID. I'm like, okay.
And so when were you getting this info? This is 2019. Was this COVID happening?
This is like right after COVID began. So like probably
spring
late
2020.
Yeah, late 2019, super early 2020. I'm doing the mortgages. Oh, no, I'm doing the trucking. And two things happened. So my buddies were making some money doing mortgages at various mortgage companies. But then my mom had this Uber passenger in the back seat of her car. She's got like a dash camera recording the interior and everything. And some guy got in the back seat of her car crying. He's super drunk and he's like, Rocket Mortgage changed my life. And so she came to me and she's like, you should apply to Rocket Mortgage and do mortgages. And I already had buddies doing it. So I'm like, might as well try.
And so I think a lot of people don't realize this because I was even talking to someone earlier today. How many people from, let's say, 2020 to 2022 got their first taste of wealth working at Rocket Mortgage?
Dude, I mean, a lot. But it's also a loaded question because a lot of people that otherwise wouldn't have had an opportunity to make that much money were given these large sums of money. And I'm speaking from my own experience, not just what I observed. I'm 19 years old. I'm handed a check for $15,000 1 month on the banking floor. And what do you think I did? Like, I instantaneously blew it on a BMW, a high rise apartment, like vacations, clothes, furniture that we shouldn't have purchased, like all kinds of dumb things. And so I got my first taste of a big paycheck at Rocket Mortgage. I most certainly didn't get my first taste of wealth. I remained hungry and low on funds the entire time.
And so for people watching this, I think there's a million versions where you can say, I regret it. I wish I was Dave Ramsey. But what's actually something positive that spending that much money at a young age taught you?
My risk tolerance is through the roof compared to my past self because of that experience. I literally blew 200 grand in a year before I even turned 21 years old. And I think that having that experience, yeah, everybody likes to say like the value of a dollar. Like, I know the true value of a dollar. And it's like, I know the true value of a couple $100,000. And the things that I could have done with that money would have been great. But at the same time, with what I'm doing today with the cleaning company and with cleaning company software and the stuff that I'm building, if I got my first big check today, I might make those mistakes now. And so my biggest takeaway from blowing all that cash back then is it's okay to do that. Like, money does not matter. I'm not feeling the pain of blowing that money today. And I could blame my current financial situation on blowing all that money back then if I chose to. But all of the lessons that I learned through blowing all that cash are so valuable now. And I think the biggest one is I had the Beamer, I had the luxury high-rise apartment, I had the nice clothes, the designer furniture, everything that most 19-year-olds would want, but I still was not happy. And so I don't care about money anymore.
And I think one of the things when I first spoke to you on the phone was, we talked about the cleaning company. I think it was a pretty straightforward conversation. But then there was this second question I asked, which is, why are you doing any of this? And I remember you very quickly, without pause, said, the day that I can climb whenever I want and know the bills are being paid is the day I look forward to. So what, in the process of you making all that money, let's say not keeping it, and then seeing a new desire, like how did you take that mindset into starting a company with Carly?
Yeah, well, so it wasn't just Rocket. I worked there. I made great money. I burnt out. I dipped. I lost all of my cash. Had to get rid of my car. Had to move into a lower income neighborhood and kind of downsize my quality of life, if you will, or my standard of living. Maybe that's a better term. And I moved on to a new lender. I made good money yet again. I was selling loans, but self-producing, learned a lot about sales and marketing there. But the setup of my life, despite having a little less money and a little less flashy belongings, was still the same. I was working 14 hours a day, networking events 3 or 4 days a week. And the way that I was spending my time, despite having a new role in a new company, was still the same as what I was doing at Rocket. It's long days, 6 or 7 day weeks, always working, and really not having anything of true value internally to myself to show for it. I don't have control of my time. I don't have really anything that's all that special to show anybody else. I'm not creating anything. And so I wasn't fulfilled in my own career still. But more importantly, my relationships were still suffering just like they were previously. And what I found is when I was trying to start the insurance company, my relationships were suffering and I was addicted to work. When I was trying to start the trucking company, my relationships were suffering and I was addicted to work. When I worked at Rocket, the theme remains. When I worked at the hard money company, the theme remained. And until I sat down with Carly and was just like, what do we do to build a bridge back between us, to reignite the spark, to feel like we're close and happy spending our time together again. And to expand on that, like I don't want to say Carly and I's relationship was falling apart, but what was most definitely occurring is I'm getting off work at 9:30 or 10 o'clock every night, getting home and saying, so, how was your day? And she's like, good night. Like,
Yeah, and I
it's
mean,
the end of the day.
a lot of young couples deal with this. We've talked about it a lot off camera, but I think a lot of people watching, whether they're a young couple or even just a couple starting entrepreneurship, there's a different set of rules that you have to start learning because not every hour is spent the same.
Yeah.
And I also think it forces you to judge the value of an hour because, the traditional family, they both work till 5 or 6, they come home, they eat food and drink together, they dissociate with media for a couple hours, they maybe talk a little bit before bed and they go to sleep. Whereas within business, you kind of have this weird game where, you actually value like which hours am I going to spend with my partner. So like for Katie and I, it's hard because mornings are not a good time. We're both working in our own lane. We actually say nothing to each other, but we make little moments where it's like, hey, from 2 to 3, we're going to put our phones away. We're going to spend time talking. And then instead of saying I could work until 2 in the morning, it's like, let's stop at 8. Let's be with each other and let's actually turn it off. So since then until now, what are some things that maybe others could look to you for advice for of how you've, even in the chaos, picked the little windows where it's like going to be you and Carly time?
Yeah. Well, I'll say this. So all of the things that I implemented today that make Spot On Cleaners successful could have made me more successful in my past careers as well. And so it was a learning curve up until today that I could have benefited from making these changes earlier than I did. And maybe I would still work at Rocket Mortgage right now if I thought the way that I do today back then, but I didn't. And so my framework of thinking is there are 2 paths that you can take, especially in the beginning of your career. You can have less control of your time and make more money, or you can have more control of your time and grow slower. And I find that most people are going to be tremendously more happy if you're in command of your time and not being paid as handsomely than if you have no time at all for anything, but you have a couple $100,000 in the bank. Because what's it all for? Like the purpose of all of us working so hard to build our brands, working so hard to sell that product or to build that company or to code whatever you're coding, whatever you're doing. All of us are doing this because we have an ideal of what we want our life to look like in the future, and you don't have to wait. Like you don't have to front load your life with all of this hard work now. Like there's a perfect way for me to say this. I hear people say all the time, I'm going to work in my 20s so I can be free in my 30s. But you can be free right now. It's just more compartmentalized. If you could have more control over your time rather than just having freedom all day, every day, wouldn't that be nice? It sure would. And that's what entrepreneurship is to me.
And I've talked in the podcast about the DoorDash, Uber Eats, or Uber trap, right? Where for a lot of people who, let's say, work a fixed job where your boss says, you're here this time, lunch is this time, leave at this time. There's this unique freedom where you try something like driving, whether it's for food or people, where you are now the manipulator of the schedule. And now, granted, you can't make $1 million, but you can rip some hours where it's like, oh, I made $75 that hour with tips and everything. And you start manipulating the time game, but there always ends up being this wall where you realize like we all have the same 24 hours. My car can only drive so fast on these roads. And it kind of makes you realize, what am I doing to now trade value? So what was it like for you to go from like, I'm trading time to then starting to think of like, how do I actually trade value? Because you had a pretty wild story this summer.
Yeah, well, I was in the same trap. So I drove for Uber when I first started the cleaning company officially. And that's really, I funded starting this cleaning company with Uber. And so I wouldn't have done it any other way. I mean, sure, I could have written some more loans, waited a little longer to quit my old job, saved up some more money, and then left. But it wasn't in the cards. I was burnt out. And I was driving for Uber, and that wall for me was I'll work for a week or two and not Uber at all and be fine. And now I need to Uber 7 days a week, 14 hours a day, just to barely make the bills. And it created this torturous ebb and flow in the cleaning company where it's like 2 weeks straight, I just produced more than I've ever produced since we started the cleaning company. Things are great. All kinds of new clients are coming in. But now I'm going to literally work from sundown to sun up and flip my sleep schedule upside down and just barely scrape by to pay the bills anyways. And during that 2 weeks, all of those new customers have customer service requests. They want to reschedule. They want to talk to us. And by us, I mean me. I'm the only guy at the desk. So Ubering was this double-edged sword where it gave me enough command over my time to start a company, but not enough income or command over my time on the opposite side of that sword to truly embody who I saw myself as an entrepreneur. And the way I got out of it was kind of divine intervention. I might still be Ubering right now if this wouldn't have happened, but yeah, I'm driving down the road. Somebody was driving down the opposite side of the road, except they happened to be on the wrong side, going about 70 miles an hour and hit me head on. Almost died. I was on the bench for like 3 weeks, couldn't really do anything, and was left in this position where it's like, all right, I was funding the cleaning company with Uber. Now Uber's gone. I don't have a car. I don't have any income either because I'm self-employed, so I can't get a new car loan. I can't do anything. I mean, I'm kind of stuck. So my brain immediately goes to, we got to get out of this lease and move. I can't move into a new place with no income. So I'm screwed on that front. Where will I live? What will I drive? How will I eat? I was certain that I had failed. And if it wasn't for a conversation with my mom, I probably would have quit for sure. Like she said, you're the only person in the family right now that's doing anything. All of us are motivated by you. If you give up right now, so will we. And I said, fine, fuck it, Mom, I'll try it. And so I did. And it's crazy to think about it. I was Ubering, I was working, I felt like I was doing a pretty good job. The cleaning company was doing like 10 grand a month. And I found myself 30 grand more in business debt, high interest, short term business debt, with a 3 grand monthly payment, and no idea how I'm going to pay it. The story's all over the place, but I'm trying here. So we took out a big loan. We bought me a new car. We financed payroll, which was previously kind of coming a little bit from Uber. And we basically had to find, within 30 days before the first payment, 3 grand a month in new revenue. And to me, that seemed impossible because I need to grow my cleaning company by 30% in 1 month. And we pulled that off. But then we did it again the next month. And then we did it again the next month. And fast forward 6 months, the debt is now paid off and we're doing 35 grand a month. And surprise, surprise, last month we grew by 30% again. And now we're doing 45. And I imagine that I'll continue to hit that metric repeatedly now. But it's funny that what it took to push me to the point where I'm like, fuck it, I gotta try, is a head-on collision at 70 miles an hour.
And so, like, if there was divine intervention, what do you think the message was?
Give 100% effort at what you're actually trying to build rather than waiting for it to seem like something that makes enough sense for you to feel confident in it. And maybe to slim that down a little bit, stop waiting for your dreams to make sense because they won't until you're actually living them.
So for a younger Drew to watch that, you felt it was impossible to add the revenue needed to survive, where when the world put you in a survival scenario, you very quickly found the revenue.
Yeah, and it was easy. That's the craziest part. I mean, like, I knew...
Let me ask this. Were the tasks to get that revenue different than they were before the accident?
No. There's a higher volume of the exact same thing. And it was, I mean, we were doing all of the same things that I'm doing right now, less the, you know, AI automations and shit. But back then it was ads. It was basically spending 20% of our revenue on advertising, and leads are coming in and I'm calling them. But I think the reason that it exponentially changed is, like I said, 2 weeks out of every month was essentially I didn't exist. And so 50% of the time, I'm not hitting my follow ups. I'm not making my appointments on time. I'm answering the phone in bed at 11:45 a.m. Hello, Spot On Cleaners. This is Andrew. And people can see exhaustion on your face. They can see desperation on your face. And you're a person that brought this to my attention. I was not telling anybody that I was driving for Uber. And I think that subliminally everybody knew. They didn't know I was driving for Uber, but what they did know is I'm not living how I say I am. I'm running this cleaning company. The image that I wanted for myself is successful entrepreneur, running this cleaning company. We're growing, great place to work as a cleaner. But it was disingenuous because I'm really an Uber driver that happens to have this side hustle where we clean houses. And that's what my life really was. And when it went from being a side hustle to my baby, it immediately became successful because I'd like to say that my back was against the wall and that's why it started working. But in reality, it's I just became dedicated enough for it to work. The actions did not change. The brand messaging didn't change. The marketing didn't change. Nothing changed. Just the level of activity. That's
And
it.
I think the thought and engagement too, like as a guy from my side, like I think there's a lot of conversations that get ignored when we create a system that runs on autopilot, but I think it caused an internal reflection for you and Carly of like, what does this look like if we're not here? And I think from my side, it was healthy too, because I kind of had that thought of like, what if I was still driving and I was Drew? Like if this same thing happened to me. And I think one of the beautiful things that you're not sharing is, although you have been using AI for how many years now?
Since the day it came
So
out.
let's say 3+ just for
Yeah.
safety. I would say you treated it as your business partner from that day moving on in a different way. Just knowing you, I saw a difference in how you use it, a difference in what you ask from it. And so for people listening, I think we've both been pretty honest about we've used it not only for like little emails, but also like to be the counselor, to be the business coach, to be the great introspection. What do you think is something you would describe AI has helped you with that most people are not talking about?
Yeah. Well, first I want to talk about how I changed the way I talked to AI after I went headfirst into Spot On after the car accident. I feel like in the beginning, I would say, here's what I want to do. What do you think I should do differently? Or what do you think I should do, ChatGPT? And my framework of prompting for ChatGPT changed from what do you think I should do to here's what I am doing. How can I make it better? And I think that's been helpful for me because ChatGPT doesn't know who I am. When I just go to ChatGPT and say, I own a cleaning company and want to make more money, what do you think I should do? Enter. It's just going to literally pull everything it can find off of Google and give me a cookie cutter answer. But when I say, my brand is Spot On Cleaners, the brand message is it's the best place to work as a cleaner, highest paying place to work as a cleaner in Cleveland, Ohio. That's our value proposition to our cleaners and our clients. This is what our brand messaging looks like. Here's what our Instagram looks like. Here's what our ads look like. Here's my goals with advertising. Here's my revenue goals for the rest of the year. Now, what adjustments do you think I should make? I'm giving it enough information to actually formulate a specialized response for my business rather than a one size fits all for every cleaning business.
Yeah.
And with something like a cleaning company, there's a restaurant here in Cleveland, Town Hall. Their owner had a good quote on a podcast I heard a while ago. He said, I run a restaurant, which is a common business, but I do it in an uncommon way. I own a cleaning company, which is a common business, but I'm doing it in an uncommon way. And if ChatGPT doesn't understand what makes my business uncommon, then it can't help me. Or it can help me much less.
And what has this all taught you about also communicating with humans?
Yeah, so I think the less that you speak and the more that you listen and answer questions, the more successful you'll be in your interactions. And the same rule applies to ChatGPT. I think, yes, you have to give it enough input to understand you, but you also have to let it ask you questions. You have to let it develop its own understanding of you. And so I like to play 21 questions with ChatGPT. I'll give it a pre-prompt. I'll say, today, this was today. Today, I am starting a video series where I'm racing to add $50,000 a month in recurring revenue to Spot On Cleaners. If I don't, then in January, I'm shaving my head. This is the pre-prompt. But now, I want you to ask me 21 questions to help you understand what the format is, what this series is going to look like long term, and help me create scripting, B-roll, and everything that I need to make this video series pop. And we didn't even make it through 21 questions. I think I answered like 5, and then it just stopped asking questions and started spitting out everything I needed.
And so how do you think for people listening, they can balance not going, let's call it too divergent with their robots, right? Because I think that's a trap that we fell into before is you can see that there's this infinite information log of ideas, topics, actions to do. How do you think other people should make sure they don't get lost in the doing here and actually go do stuff in the real world from it?
Give yourself a deadline for an outcome and create a plan and then do one thing at a time. That's what I have done. I have a month by month plan from now. You actually gave me the prompt to do this, and it's sitting in on my desk right now. I have a month by month plan to reach a $10 million valuation on Spot On Cleaners by December of 2027, to own a stable, low leverage real estate portfolio, and to have a house in Arizona and then somewhere else. I don't know where yet, but I have a month by month plan to get all of that done. So far, there is check marks in pen next to every bullet point on every month. And I just worry about whatever I'm supposed to be worried about that month. Now, is this plan bulletproof? Definitely not. Like I might fall behind. I might find that it's not actually what I want. Who knows? But I'm always working on one goal at a time. Now, of course, there's multiple directives going on at Spot On Cleaners at all times. There's multiple things we're working on always. But when I wake up in the morning, generally there's one goal. And that's what I'm working on. Today, that goal was sales calls. And I accomplished pretty much only those sales calls.
Yeah.
Because it's what I decided I wanted to do.
So then I think for people watching and for yourself included, what do you think is going to be the biggest shiny object or woman in the red dress for you to avoid to hit that goal by 2027?
Starting more businesses than I have to. So right now it's the cleaning company, and then I'm working on a cleaning company CRM called Broombase and an AI agents company that's kind of working in tandem with that. Neither of those businesses exist yet, and I find that the more that I work on my dream of owning a software company that is tailored to cleaning companies, my dream of building AI agents for other cleaning companies, the less I get done for Spot On Cleaners. Meanwhile, I'm able to add more revenue, I'm able to grow my net worth faster, and I'm able to make more money in a shorter period of time working on Spot On Cleaners than I can working on these other passion projects of mine. And so I think the biggest shiny object for me is like monkey see, monkey do. That's my shiny object. When I see some other guy talking about this business that he started and he says some stuff I disagree with, and I'm like, I could do that. And then I go home and stay up for 16 hours straight trying to figure out how I could build it myself. That's my shiny object. It's starting other businesses that I don't need to be starting, that is taking me away from the directives that I'm already working on with the stuff that's working right now.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've been working on myself recently is, the whole concept of, both of us have fathers that are present in our life. We talk to them, and while we can respect what they've done for us, we also see a path that they didn't take. So like for myself, my dad went from being the first one who was like poverty food stamps to retired at 57. And what got him that was a great education, hard work, and more hard work. So for me, there's this moment where I look at what I'm doing now and it's like, I actually think our next level of growth is going to require me to work less hard. it's going to require me to actually do the opposite of what my dad did. And there's this weird moment where you actually stop looking at the nest for help and support, and you actually have to go look at like what other nests have other people found out there. So do you feel like for you a lot of that comes from like what you saw growing up?
Yeah. Well, my dad, I grew up watching him own an apparel company that was failing. He tried starting a cable construction company, failing. And I think watching my dad go through that journey as a kid was helpful. But I think, yeah, I learned hard work from my dad, which is an irreplaceable skill. Like you have to have grit. You have to, especially in the beginning, be willing to pull those 18-hour shifts, get no sleep, go into Uber or drive for DoorDash. Sure, if that's what you have to do, yeah, you have to be willing to work that hard. But I like this quote: money is the stored value of other people's time. And so, as long as you have yourself trapped in a box where if I just work more, then I'll make more, you're not going to be successful as you want to be because you're trading your time for money. When in reality, you should always be looking for a vector to work less and make more. And in most cases, that's done by delegation. So if you can build a system for something that can be used by somebody else and then they make money and you do, you're setting yourself up for success via spending less time. And the more people that can put food on their table because of your efforts, the more successful you're going to be. The more people that spend their time growing your business with you, the more successful you're going to be because money is the stored value of other people's time, not yours.